तव कथामृतं तप्तजीवनं कविभिरीडितं कल्मषापहं श्रवणमङ्गलं श्रीमदाततं भुवि गृह्णन्ति ये भूरिदा जनाः. So we continue from where we left last time. It was the conversation that took place on 11th October 1884. And the subheading which Master Masha is giving is very interesting. We will just recapitulate what we discussed. A few lines we had discussed, but we will, because so much of time has passed. The subheading is Yoga of Dhyana, that is meditation, which is nothing but Raj Yoga. And Sri Ramakrishna, Yoga of Dhyana and Sri Ramakrishna, that is one part. The second part is looking outwardly and inwardly. So these are the topics that will be discussed by Sri Ramakrishna. So Sri Ramakrishna begins with what is the tendency of the mind, or what is the outlook of a person when the mind is outward. Obviously, nobody needs to train one's mind to be outward. It is the most natural thing. Maybe just immediately after birth, the child always is not used to the outside world, so it looks inward, or at the most looks at the mother. It doesn't want to bother about the whole world because it is not exposed. It only knows the mother, and maybe if some people come and try to attract its attention. So child is born in such a way, when it is born, it is almost looking inward. We do not know how the child's mind works, what the child might be thinking. There are obviously some thoughts which the child has brought from its previous life. It also sees things in a very blurred way till the eyes develop, the rods and cones of the retina develop. It takes time for it to look outward. It may look outward, but it will not register anything. So, if it is not registering anything, then obviously the outward looking is less compared to an adult. But we can't say for sure whether it is looking inward. That all depends on the samskaras of the previous birth. If the child was a yogi in the previous birth, it has all the samskaras of looking inward, then perhaps like Shukadeva, right from childhood, they are indrawn, they look inward. Now, what is the difference between looking outward and inward? Sri Ramakrishna says, when a man's mind is turned outward, he sees the gross. It's a very obvious thing. When we look out, the first thing we see is the gross world universe outside. And his mind, it's very important to understand. The mind can dwell in any one of the 5 koshas, pancha koshas, annamay kosha, pranamay kosha, manomay kosha, vijnanamay kosha, and anandamay kosha. So it's not that the mind is in one particular, mind is scattered. It is much more pervading, all pervading than the body. Body has certain restrictions. You can say, this is my body. So whatever is inside the body, you have control over. You can't have control over somebody else's breathing because it's not part of your body. So the mind, when it dwells on the annamay kosha, that means one is seeing with the natural eyes, always curious to look at things, interpret things, analyze things. Then it is, Thakur says, then you can say that when the mind is outward, the mind dwells on the Annamay Kosha, in the Annamay Kosha. Next, he says, is the subtle body, Sukshma Sharira. When the mind functions in the subtle body, that is, it dwells in the Manomay Kosha and the Vijnanamay Kosha. Of course, when you say Annamay Kosha, Pranamay Kosha is also included, because prana gives life force to the body. So if a person sees, a dead person will not see because there is no prana. Eyes are there, everything is there, but it cannot see. Whereas Annamaya Kosha and Pranamaya Kosha are the gross part of our personality, which is useful for us to look outward. That is one category of people. Everybody looks outward. It's not that people are trained that way. As they grow up, the only training that their parents and the school and education, modern education, maybe in ancient days, they taught the children how to look inward. But that is now gone from the curriculum. Everybody is taught how to look outward, look at mathematics, look at physics, look at biology, everything outward. Maybe you now and then some subject which will say psychology or something where you look at the mind at a subtle level, the thought level. But that is rare. It's only when you grow up. They normally teach you alphabets, teach you numbers, mathematics. So everything in as part of education is the training for looking outward. So Manomaya Kosha and Annamaya Kosha. And of course, Annamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, and to some extent, the Manomaya Kosha. And then the Vijnanamaya Kosha also. Next comes, Sri Ramakrishna says, when the mind is looking now half outward, half inward, the mind functions in the subtle body. Next comes the Karana, causal body. When the mind goes to the causal body, now you have to remember how Sri Ramakrishna is analyzing. We just discussed this topic yesterday in the Vedanta and the science of human resources. We started with the gross body. It's a coincidence that Thakur is explaining what we explained yesterday. So we don't need further explanation. In the beginning, it was a very important class which we took yesterday because that explained our perception, how we look at the world, how a normal human being looks at the world, and how a spiritual human being should look at the world. So that we discussed yesterday. We are not repeating that. So we come, Thakur says, he summarizes what we discussed for 1 hour. Thakur is explaining in one paragraph. He says, when the mind goes to the causal body, there is only bliss. The mind then dwells in the Anandamaya Kosha. This is the 5th Kosha, about which we get new information in the gospel. Of course, it is there in Vedanta, and we will discuss it when we come to that subtle body and Karana Sharira. If you remember, we start with gross body in the Saturday class. It will take 1 or 2 more classes. Then we'll come to the subtle body where a lot of discussion is there. Sukshma Sharira, which deals with the Manomaya Kosha and Vijnanamaya Kosha, the next 2 levels. And the 5th level will be exclusive topic of the Karana Sharira or the Anandamaya Kosha, what it means. So what are these different levels of our personality? Thakur explains in one paragraph. Then he says, and he gives some beautiful examples to understand it. Sri Ramakrishna does not discuss like we discuss in Vedanta and the science of human possibilities. We discuss in a very scientific way. Thakur is also very scientific, but he speaks with very few words directly based on experience and based on examples which are so powerful that if you meditate on that, you can understand what you will take normally 2-3 hours or 2-3 classes or 4-5 classes. So our Vedanta and the science of human possibilities is a class which is for a person who is new to spiritual life. For fortunate people, or maybe for people who have already been familiar with Vedanta and they have come to Thakur, Sri Ramakrishna, and somehow by great grace of Ramakrishna himself, they have come to like the gospel. I again repeat, because it requires a tremendous grace of Thakur to even think, read, understand, and more importantly, assimilate the gospel. Perhaps it may be the result of punya of so many lives that one comes to the gospel. That is why when he wrote this book, He gives his own example. He said, this book saved my life. He was about to go commit suicide. I have told you many times what was the situation. Then he said, for my survival, I wrote down. He did not even intend to write that book or publish that in 5 volumes, which we are reading now. He wrote it only for himself because he felt that this is the message without which I would have committed suicide. To tell you, this is a very direct way of expressing. It is not as bad as that, but there is truth in this statement. Because M himself said, this was like Amruta for me. The Katha, Amruta. Katha means story. Amruta means that which saves you, makes you immortal. So he felt if that book has saved a person who was so much depressed and suffering in the world, then how much beneficial it will be for future humanity. That is the essence of the Bhagavata mantra. We chant every time, but we don't know the meaning. It's worth remembering now and then. Tava kathamritam means your gospel. Why gospel is important? Tava kathamritam. In this context, from the Bhagavata context, it means Krishna's words. But it is the same thing, any avatara's words. But it was meant for this kathamrita. That is why he said, Sri Ramakrishna kathamrita. Tava kathamritam tapta jivanam. Tapta means people who are burning in the miseries of samsara. Not for ordinary people. Ordinary people may not understand the importance. But that doesn't mean you always have to burn. Everybody does not follow the route of M. He goes to the extreme and then comes to Kathamrit. Some lucky people, because of good samskaras, come to gospel even when they are happy. They are very lucky. But anyway, so Tava Kathamritam Tapta Jivanam. But in majority of the cases, it is for people who are burnt in the misery of the world. Some people realize that they are burnt. Some people don't realize, but they are getting burnt by the problems. They are just endure it, think that everything is fine. But silently they know they are burning, whether mentally or physically. Tava Kathamritam Tapta Jivanam Kavibiriditam Kalmashapaham. Kavi means great wise people have praised this. They have glorified this great words of Sri Krishna in the Bhagavad and Kathamrita in this Yuga. When you refer to Sri Ramakrishna. Kavi Viriditam Kalmashapaham. Kalmasha means the causes of misery are removed by just hearing the gospel. Tapta Jivanam Kavi Viriditam, praised by the Kavis. Kalmashapam Shravana Mangalam. Why? How does it remove the misery? Because it is wonderful to hear. Even just to hear, not just assimilate. Even to hear the Kathamrut. That is why once Brahmananji told, Vireshwaranji quotes that. He told some of the devotees who had said, if you want Brahma Gyan, I can tell you in one sentence how to attain. Read the gospel every day. It appears like a very simplistic advice. People have been reading the gospel, may not be every day, but regularly. But what Brahmananji meant that if you read in the proper way, it will remove all the kalma. Kalma shapaham, shravana mangalam. It is good to hear, especially if you can read it in the original, but even the translation is good. Shravana mangalam, srimada-tatam, bhuvi granantiye, bhurida janaha. So the whole multitude, it has everywhere, whichever part of the world they are. So this gospel is an eternal nectar which can save. So Anandamai Kosha, the Karana Sharira, is the place, it's not the Ananda of the body or the mind. That we can get intellectually. A lot of people confuse the simple Ananda of the body and the simple Ananda of some music or something which the mind enjoys. Anything, pleasant sight, It's not always physical. Sometimes it is mental joy. But that is not the Ananda. Karana Sharira's Anandamay Kosha is different. That is why he says, when the mind dwells, when the same mind dwells in the body, it gets sukha. There is a difference between sukha and ananda. Sukha is pleasure, whereas ananda is different in Sanskrit. In Bengali and other languages, vernacular language, you say, how are you? Oh, I am in ananda. Anand mein hu. Anand mein hu. In Hindi, they say, I am in joy. But what joy? It is physical joy. So I am sukhi, you can say, but that is not ananda. Whereas Thakur says, if the mind dwells somehow by going inward in the Anandamaya Kosha, what happens? Then he gives a comparison. It is the same as the semi-conscious state of Chaitanya Deva. So he's now giving an example. Chaitanya Deva was semi-conscious. You see, when he saw, they say in Puri, the sea, the dark sea. In Puri, it is a bit dark in color. It's not blue. Because of, I don't know, for some reason, maybe the sand is dark. So the sea is dark. And of course, they say Krishna's color was dark, darkish blue, not black. So when he saw the sea, he was seeing externally the sea. But his mind was in Anandamaya Kosha of Krishna, his Ishta Devata. So as Thakur says, the semi-conscious state. It's not semi-conscious because of some defect. We become semi-conscious because of lack of nutrition or for several reasons one can become semi-conscious or unconscious. But this is not that. This is semi-consciousness, which is a result of the mind, or 90% or 99% of the mind being inward and enjoying the bliss of Anandamaya Kosha. So Sri Ramakrishna explains, he cannot explain further. So he says, this is the bliss Chaitanya Deva. It is the same as Chaitanya Deva's bliss when he was in that bhava. Semi-conscious state means actually it is bhava. Bhava is a word which cannot be strictly translated. You can't say it is feeling. Commonly, bhava means a feeling. But here, divya bhava, or that semi-conscious state of Chaitanya. Then he says, after the semi-conscious state, next the mind is merged. It vanishes. That is a much higher state. It is not restricted to the gross, subtle or causal. Till causal, it is semi-conscious. It sees the outside world, maybe 5%. But it enjoys, like Thakur. He used to see many things. Even when he saw ordinary people, many times you will see in the gospel, he says, I saw there was that woman on the street who was perhaps a prostitute. But he says, I saw the Anandamayi Ma in that. That means 90% of the mind was in the Karana Sharira. So he was semi-conscious. He was seeing something, some form. But it didn't matter. If we are in the gross body, we'll see that person as the world sees. But when these people see, they don't see people as the world sees. They see in a different way. So, but beyond that is another state where the mind is merged, it vanishes in the Mahakarana, not the Karana Sharira. If it is in the Karana Sharira, it has still that identification with the body and the mind, and the mind thinks that, oh, it is a semi-conscious state. I am enjoying the bliss of Krishna. I am enjoying the bliss of my Ishta. These things may happen, but still they have not reached the highest. He says only when it reaches the Mahakarana, means that which is the great universal cause. When the mind vanishes, there is no more news of it. This is the inmost state which Chaitanya Deva experienced. That time he was not even semi-conscious. He merged himself in Krishna or his Ishta. Do you know? Then he's still explaining. You see how simple it is. Now this will take at least a few sessions, 10, 15 sessions, quoting from Upanishads, if you attend the Saturday class. By some chance, if we come when we discuss the Karana Sharira, you will see how the Upanishads try to explain and how Sri Ramakrishna explains the same Upanishadic truth in a few sentences. He says, he gives an example which everybody has observed, has seen. He says, do you know how that innermost state is? I mean, the Mahakarana, not the Karana, that is semi-conscious. That Chaitanya's seeing Chaitanya or seeing even some of the disciples or even Thakur himself, we see day and night he went into that state. But he is not quoting himself. He says Chaitanya had that. But that by implication, Sri Ramakrishna also had. But what about the common people who don't even have that state? Maybe Bhavanath, Rakhal and all, they had this semi-conscious state, they would have understood what Thakur said. But what about a person who is totally gross? He says, do you know what that inmost state is? This is the beauty of Sri Ramakrishna. He comes down to our level. He says, Sri Dayananda once said, come into the inner apartment and shut the door. He's giving an example. When he went to see Dayananda, they say Sri Ramakrishna met Dayananda Saraswati. Anybody who was great, he used to go and see. I want to see who he is, what he has realized. Of course, Dayananda Saraswati said, we people are happy with the buttermilk, whereas the butter has been taken away by this Sri Ramakrishna. He could see from his vision that we are struggling to attain that higher state, and this Sri Ramakrishna has taken the butter, means he has taken the essence of the spirit. We are still struggling. So, but Sri Ramakrishna is humble enough to quote Dayananda. Dayananda, when he went, he was very selective. He didn't allow everybody to enter his inner apartment. Seeing Thakur, he said, come. Dayananda said to me, come into the inner apartment and then shut the door, because he knew he is a special person. He did not want a crowd to come after Sri Ramakrishna. But not everybody can go in the inner apartment. So that is how he is trying to indirectly explain, just as only a few who have the semi-conscious state, like Chaitanya Deva, can transcend it and enter the Mahakarana. Their mind, it's like entering this inner apartment where only one person is allowed. Others are stopped at the outer gate. Then he explains, giving another beautiful example, that of a flame which we see every day. He said, I normally correlate these three shariras with the flame of a lamp. He meditated on these truths. He did not need to read books. He must have heard from some pandits what is this Karana Sharira. But he used these simple techniques. We see the flame. Every day we light a lamp, but we never meditate on the lamp. He says, I used to correlate it. As Swami Vivekananda said many times, Sri Ramakrishna did not have to go to university or read books. His university was life. If he sees a lamp, he learns something from the lamp. If he hears, obviously he heard many things. You don't have to go to university. He just surrounded himself with sadhus. Right from childhood, he heard Bhagavata, he heard this. Somebody asked him, you don't read. How do you have this knowledge? But he told the secret. He said, I may not have read, but how much have I heard? And once he heard anything, his memory was so sharp, he will not forget. We hear many things repeatedly, but we forget everything. So, he must have heard from someone, or he must have correlated it. That is his own. I correlated with the flame of a lamp. Because he has heard the explanation of the three shariras. Now you see his intelligence is so much. And Swamiji says it is because he didn't go to the university, his thinking is original. We think by going to the university, our thinking is better. But it is complicated, and apparently for spiritual purposes, it is useless. So he says how Sri Ramakrishna is learning things in the University of Nature, as Swamiji said. He said he was original because he did not take any professor's word. He heard everything, but till he experienced, till he gave these examples, till he himself experienced. And sometimes he had visions of this lamp, as if Ma Kali is telling him or his Ishta is telling him. He sometimes got perplexed. So unlike all of us, he didn't have to go to a professor. He would simply ask mother, and who's Prakriti herself, and nature would teach him. And she'll say, see this lamp, can you see? This is, I can explain to you in such a simple language, the three shariras. So he says, I would think of the flame's red color as gross. Normally the red color is outside. The white inner part, I would think as subtle. And the innermost black part, you see near the wick of the lamp, there is some darkness. That he says is the Karana, the body of Ananda Sharira or Anandamay Kosha, the body of ecstasy. So, taking this example of the lamp, he says, see how we progressively go towards the center. The dark portion, and then the innermost dark part, the outermost red, and after the reddish yellow, you will have a white part which is glowing in between. That is the Sukshma Sharira. And then you come Karana. And then he says, now if somebody has reached the Karana Sharira through going inward, meditation, what are the external signs? Now these are the signs he himself experienced, otherwise he would not have told us. There are signs that one is meditating correctly. Now this is a sign of one who is meditating, a very adept in meditation. Don't think it is so easy. We should not even imagine that we will have reached this state so quickly. But Thakur's standard is very high. He said there are signs that one is meditating correctly. One of the signs, there are many other signs, but one of the signs is that even if a bird sits on your head, the bird will sit on your head, not that even if it sits, the bird will come and sit on your head as if your whole body and the head is an inert object. Now you have to imagine how difficult it is. The moment we sit for meditation, no bird will dare to come near us, unless of course it is a pet. If it knows you, then it is a different issue, but that takes years and years for the dog or the bird to be familiar with you. No strange bird will come and sit on your head of a living human being. But it won't even bother if there is a big stone, rock, even if it is a human shape or even if it is a statue. If you have observed, the bird knows that this is not a living statue. Many of the statues you will see birds perching on the head of the statue. Whereas it won't do so in a living human being. Somehow it gets an intuitive feeling that this person is alive, will catch me. But if one is meditating in that state, Thakur says, invariably, one of the signs is that if you are meditating, that's why some pictures of Buddha you can see. Even there is a beautiful picture of Jesus Christ, which Swami Trigunatitanji asked one of the artists to paint. It is there in our center here, where Jesus is sitting. Very rarely you will find Jesus in a dhyana mudra, that is a meditation pose. So because he was in San Francisco, Trigunatitanji told some artist, said, can you draw this painting? I'll give you. Where a bird is almost about to perch on Jesus's head. Just to show that if one meditates correctly, then the bird will sit on the head thinking that you are in inert, means you will be in samadhi. When you are in samadhi, you don't have any, the bird will not recognize that you are alive. You will be alive, but you will be so much less connected with the gross. You will be in the Karana Sharira, enjoying the samadhi. Then he gives another example, that his first meeting in 1863 with Keshav in meditation. May not be this state. Keshav obviously did not attain the state which he says is the ultimate. If one is meditating perfectly, perfect meditator will have this. But what if one is not perfect? Then he says, I saw Keshav. He gives an example. When I saw Keshav for the first time, that is in 1864, 20 years before this conversation took place, he said, I saw him first in the Adi Brahmo Samaj. Several people were sitting on the dais. Now, they had a British system, I mean the English system or the Christian system, where there would be a congregation. Somebody will sit on the dais, the others will sit below on the chair. They didn't have the traditional Indian way of having a service. So he says, when I saw Keshav for the first time in Adi Brahmo Samaj, several people were sitting along with him on the dais. Keshav was in the middle. Obviously, he was the leader. Others were on both sides. He was motionless, like a log of wood. I mean, Thakur appreciates that. Perhaps he was the only one who was in that meditative state, a deep meditative state. And immediately Thakur told Mathur Babu, who was still alive, look at his float. Float means, float is used to catch fish. Those who do fishing, they know they have to have a line and that bait is attached to the float. That float, and then there is a bait. It will float for some time and then the bait will be caught by the fish. And then when the fish gets stuck in that bait, while eating the bait, you just pull. So what happens is, if Thakur used to observe people when they are fishing, he says, look at his float. The fish has eaten the bait. What he means is, the person who is fishing, he can be inattentive when the fish has not eaten the bait. He will just hang the bait and wait for the fish. But his mind is so focused. That is why Thakur liked to see a picture where a fisherman is fishing. Because he has to be so alert. The moment there is a fish near the bait, he has to just pull. Otherwise, he will miss. That fish will escape. So he says, look at his float. The fish has eaten the bait. Means his mind has touched the Karana Sharira, or at least it has entered the deep state of meditation. So that is how Thakur used to give examples. Those who know fishing, those who know how concentrated a person is, a fisherman, a good fisherman is, when he puts his line and then just waits, he cannot be inattentive. Otherwise, he will lose the fish. He has to wait till the fish comes and grabs the food, eaten the bait, that is, then he has to pull. Otherwise, the hook will not stick in its mouth. It will eat the bait and go away. So one has to be very alert to pull at the right time. That is how fishing is done. You have to be always, don't allow the fish to just take a part of the bait and escape. If you don't pull when the mouth is open, maybe that hook will not stick in its mouth. So this concentration of the fisherman, Thakur used to give that example in some other place. Our concentration on our Ishta should be like that. Nothing should be able to disturb you. You are focusing so much that till you reach that state, like Keshav reached, he was meditating, suddenly became inert. And Thakur could clearly say the people who are sitting near him, like in another place he says, I saw them, he used some harsh language, but that is how Thakur spoke. He said, I saw all others look like a pack of monkeys. Their eyes were closed, but he could read their mind. Their minds were not there. Only Keshav was very steady because he had eaten the bait. So look at his float. So he's telling Mathur Babu, you see, among all these people who are sitting with him and trying to meditate, only he has succeeded. He says, because of his power of meditation, he achieved all he desired. He's not saying that with this meditation, people will have this power of meditation. But very often, this power of meditation will give them name, fame, and so forth. He became a famous person. So that's why the yogis are warned, don't stop. Otherwise, these diversions will take you away. Moment you get name, moment you get fame, you will be distracted from the goal. He's not saying he has attained the highest. He could have done like Chaitanya, but with all his limitations, with his attachment to his huge organization, somehow, even with that meditative state, he could not go further. But he says, because of the power of meditation, he achieved what he desired. He had some desires in his mind. I should be a teacher, I should be this, I should be that, and I should have a large following. I should start an organization. The same thing he said with Dayanand Saraswati. Thakur went to see him because he had heard a lot of. He said, I saw his chest was red. You see, we don't understand why Thakur gives such examples. I found the meaning, he says, I saw his chest, I mean, he could see the inside of Dayanand Saraswati. Of course, the Arya Samaj people don't like that. But Thakur was so, even Brahmos didn't like that. Who is this Sri Ramakrishna who comments on our Guru like that? But Thakur said, and Keshav didn't mind because he knew how did Sri Ramakrishna understand, how is Sri Ramakrishna able to understand my state? Once he told some people, you don't know, he says idol worship is bad, but secretly he also takes the. Thakur was like a child. All the power that you see is because he worshipped the Divine Mother. Secretly he does it. He can't do it in public because that Brahmos will not allow that. Murti Puja is not allowed. Form is not allowed. You have to worship only the formless God. But he secretly, Thakur knew. And Keshav would have been surprised because how does this person know what I do in my room? That I am secretly worshipping some deity. You see, after all, the old samskaras will not go. He might have followed a movement or started a movement or started an organization. But at the same time, his samskaras, his devotion to Mother, Thakur knew, oh, he takes the name of Makali or whichever deity he believed in. Mother. He was a mother worshipper. Thakur, like a child, once told everybody, oh, you don't know, he does mother's puja secretly. So, all this power of meditation can be used for desired objects like name, fame, and so forth. But with the grace of the Lord, even that is difficult to attain. But then he said, Sri Ramakrishna says something very important. He says that is going inward. He had closed his eyes, but I give an alternative form of meditation. One can also meditate with eyes open. Now, the whole Brahmo Samaj, they would perhaps not accept it. They were taught that you have to close your eyes. Even we, when we instruct, we normally tell close your eyes so that you can focus. But you can also reach a state, according to Thakur, where you can meditate with eyes open. He says, one can also meditate with eyes open. And it is also possible to meditate while talking. Now, these are words which Sri Ramakrishna is saying out of his own experience. Now, if you ask how is it possible, because it is not possible for me, because I can't meditate with eyes open, I should not rule out. Here is Thakur who has demonstrated it. Then he gives another example, which every one of us has experienced but never learnt any lesson from that. He says, just try to imagine the painful twinge of a toothache. Now you see how easy is made. Have you ever experienced a toothache? Then you should understand. One who is wise will understand. That is what he is saying. But we are not happy with all these examples. We think gospel is some simple book. And we want complicated things. I want Vedanta, sir. I want to listen to that, the highest Advaita, and this, that. This text, the more difficult the text, the more you think you have achieved. And I have listened to this. I want to Buddhism. I want this, that. But Thakur, in his very simple way, is bringing the whole essence, Kathamruta Sara, the essence of not Upanishad Sara, the essence of the Upanishads, Vedas, and Vedanta. That is why Sri Ramakrishna, Swami Vivekananda was very difficult to convince. But seeing Sri Ramakrishna, he said, you cannot understand the Vedas and Vedanta unless you study it in the light of Sri Ramakrishna's life and message. Now, it is a tremendous statement. People will think, after all, he is his guru. So he is praising his guru. It's not so. If you see this, he gives an example. Which Upanishad will give you? That everybody has a toothache. And we struggle with our toothache. But how many of us will connect it to anything remotely with spirituality? Oh, toothache is there, go to the dentist, get it solved, maybe extract the tooth. At that time, these advices or these examples do not come. If it comes, if we read the gospel in the right sense, you will find that every action that you do, every talking that you do, every action, small action, somewhere it has an echo in the gospel. Thakur has not told us anything which a person normally does not experience. His examples are down to earth. Something which we see every day, but we don't understand or don't understand the inner significance. So he says, three things he says. We have to now analyze this. It is very difficult, but we have to try. Every time you read, you will find some new meaning, and there is no end. Once Swami Vivekananda told his Guru Bhais, they thought Sri Ramakrishna's simple words, very happy. Okay, we will note down, we remember, and oh, such a nice example he gave. But Swamiji says, don't take it lightly. He said, you give me one example of parable of one simple example of from the gospel or from Thakur's quotes or Thakur's sayings. He said, I can give you a talk for 3 days continuous. I can go endlessly. What is the deeper meaning? It's only because we don't understand. So he gives 3 examples. One can meditate with eyes open. What does it mean? 1. It is also possible to meditate while talking. Number 2. And then he says, imagine the painful twinge of a toothache. How to combine these two? Now, but there was some people very superficial sitting there. Then there was a tutor from the house of Tagore. Tagores were very rich people. So they didn't send their children to ordinary schools. They thought it's below their class, aristocratic people. So they could afford to have a private tutor. So most of the Tagore family children, they had their education. They even wanted Nivedita to tutor. Nivedita became a great friend of the Tagore family. But, they requested her to teach excellent English to the Tagore children. She said, I have not come here for this. She was no longer the teacher she was in Wimbledon. She was totally different when she went to India. Swamiji had given her a different job. He said, if you want, I can teach them Sanskrit or Bengali or Indian culture. If you really insist, they need that. For English, you get some other teacher. So the tutor from the house of Tagore, maybe he was an English educated person, like the famous father of Aurobindo Ghosh, who thought any exposure to the native language, to Bengali, when he was growing up, he saw that his son was never exposed to anything remotely connected with Indian. He said everything native is bad. Bengali language is bad. Bengali books are bad, Indian culture is bad, and Aurobindo was sent to England because his father believed that only with the best possible English education and not allowing him any influence of the native, so-called native, because that is what the Englishmen always used to tell. So his father totally accepted that and he did not expose. As a result, when Aurobindo came to England and just failed the civil service, he would have passed. But he, unfortunately or luckily, he failed because the horse riding test, I think he did not pass. I don't know what exactly is the reason, but he had to go back to India. And the Baroda Maharaja, seeing him such a wonderful English educated graduate, he said, you come, I will make you the head of education in my whole Baroda state. It is there when Nivedita came, because he was a Bengali, or maybe because he was from Calcutta, when Baroda Sayaji Rao Gaikwad sent Aurobindo to meet Nivedita. And she started, though she was very new to Bengali language, she had learned because she has to teach the children, the girls. So she had learned enough Bengali to speak. And when he was trained in such a way that even if he knew, he would not speak. So he was trying to impress her by speaking in English. And Nivedita scolded him. And when she came to know he can't even read and write Bengali, he said, are you not ashamed? That was a big shock. People don't realize how Aurobindo got converted and became so deeply Indianized. It is because of Sister Nivedita. Directly or indirectly, if you read the biography, she says, are you not ashamed? You don't know your mother tongue. You can't read. And you are proudly saying and trying to speak in a foreign language. How can you grow in nobility? All the best values you can get only through your mother tongue. So when he heard that, it was a shock of his life. Then you see, suddenly his life changes. He goes to Pondicherry. He became such a great lover of motherland, the Sanskrit language. In fact, he wanted Sanskrit language to be made compulsory, not English, because that dream was not fulfilled. But he said, without Sanskrit, we are nobody. Our culture is of no use. So that whole transformation was because of Nivedita. So now this tutor from the house of Tagore, he says he has superficially understood Thakur's toothache, he knows. But how that toothache is to be connected to meditating with eyes open and meditation while talking, that he has not understood, but he laughs. Yes, sir, I know it quite well, as if he has understood. Of course, Thakur doesn't question him further. Then Thakur also laughs, but then, knowing fully well that he has not understood, tries to explain. How can this toothache? Then he says, laughing, maybe he said the tutor is just saying, I know quite well, and everybody laughs because it's not so easy to understand Thakur. So Thakur also laughs and tells him, you know why toothache is important, or toothache can give you a lesson. When you have a toothache, you attend all your duties, but your mind is always attached to the toothache. See the observation. The toothache is there. You can't just say that it is not there. But that doesn't mean you'll stop doing everything. Till the toothache goes, you have to carry on with all your duties. He said, but your mind remains attached. If that is possible, in similar fashion, you can meditate with your eyes open and also while talking. Now, talking will come to later. There is a beautiful painting which Thakur asked M to get. He said, can you get me a nice painting of a bird sitting on an egg, hatching an egg? You must have seen many times the ducks and all, they sit on the eggs to incubate it. And they are always, eyes are open. Eyes are always open. They don't sleep because they know if they sleep, some other bird will come or some other snake will come and take away the eggs. So he says, he gave that example another example in some other place. It is not mentioned here. Here is giving the toothache. Eyes are open, you are doing the work, but your mind is on the. So even the duck or any bird who is hatching the egg, Thakur wanted a painting where the bird's eyes are open, it's gazing out, but there is a look of inwardness. And he says the bird is always focused. And when the egg will hatch, and the bird comes out because it's worried. The bird, chicken, the chicken or any bird, the young one should not die in the eggshell, or it should not, for some reason, be stolen. So it's protecting it. At the same time, it is looking at the world, who is coming, who is going, everything. But its mind is focused on the egg. Yeah. So, yes. 8 minutes. Yeah. So, this is how Thakur explains that if a bird can do it, if a person with a toothache can focus on his tooth, the pain of the tooth, not the tooth, the pain, then if one is really connected to God with all his activities while he's talking, while his eyes are open, he may be doing many things. He may be talking to someone, but his mind can be, it is possible. Sri Ramakrishna is telling from his own example. Now the tutor understands a little. So at least he knows. So he says, God's name is the Redeemer of the fallen. Tranakarta, or we have Tasmat Tvameva Sharanam Mama Dina Bandhu. In Om Rim Ritam, it is there. That you are the Redeemer of the fallen. Dina Bandhu. Tasmat Tvameva Sharanam. You are the support of the one who has fallen. So I feel reassured. So the tutor perhaps says, I don't understand all these things, but I know, at least verbally he's saying, I know that he is the Redeemer of the fallen. And he will, whatever be our state, I feel reassured. He is so compassionate. At least this much the tutor has accepted. Now, we can another topic, but before that, I would like to, if there are some questions, there's not much time because this is a new topic which deals with the Sikhs, Sikh and Krishnadas. He quotes from another story with the Sikhs, what conversation he had with the Sikh followers. Because in Dakshineshwar, there was an ammunition factory where a lot of Punjabis used to work, Sikhs used to work. So the Sikhs used to sit there. On the holidays, they used to come and sit in front of Thakur and ask. So they have their own philosophy. And Thakur, not that he said it is wrong, but he corrected. He said, what attitude we should have when we deal with God. So all those things are there. So if there are some questions, you can just ask in the chat. We have a few minutes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I just one question is that I just mentioned that Dayanand Saraswati, when he saw him, we said it in the context of entering the chamber of Dayanand Saraswati. That's what happened. Thakur goes and then he says, see, he told everybody to go out. I was the only one who was allowed. That is, he felt that he is too important a person. Everybody should not be allowed. At that time, Sri Ramakrishna, or maybe on some other occasion, we don't exactly know how many times he has met. But he went to meet him when he heard Dayanand Saraswati has come. So he just made a casual remark. It hurt some of the followers, but he spoke the truth because he could see it. He said, I saw his chest was red. Now, what is the meaning of that? He said he is full of rajas, just as he told these things about Keshav Sen. He told a fact, but perhaps they did not like it, just as the Dayananda's followers were fanatically attached to him. He said he is a wonderful person. Not that he criticized him, but he said there was a small problem. His chest was appearing red. He has too much of rajas. So he wants to do this, he wants to do that, start a movement. So that is his observation. That in this context, it means that when one meditates, one gets these powers because of the intense concentration. And if one has desires, there is a tendency for that person to use these powers to get name and fame. So indirectly, Thakur says all these people who have become famous, Thakur goes to see them because there is some quality in them, some wonderful quality because of which they have become great. Keshav Sen, Dayanand Saraswati, Vaishnav Charan, so many people he met. But at the same time, they also had a desire for name and fame based on the wonderful powers they had. Though in some other place, Thakur said one has to even transcend that to reach the goal. So, the tutor is asking some questions, and Sri Ramakrishna also says some other things which were connected with the Sikh religion when they say that the Lord is merciful. And some of them quote from some of the scriptures. They say God is so merciful, He has created human beings, He has given us such a wonderful thing, beautiful apples to eat. He has given so many things free. That is why He is great. And He is protecting us from danger at every step. So that is the reason, that is one of the reasons. Every religion believes in that. God should protect my money, God should protect. In fact, some people pray to Hanuman when they go. One of our Swamis got terribly angry when he said, I do Hanuman Chalisa. Swamiji, I am not worried because I do Hanuman Chalisa when I go out of, because there's a lot of robbery in my house, in our area. And to protect my house, I chant Hanuman Chalisa so that Hanuman can protect. Then he got angry, the Swami. He said, do you think Hanuman is a watchman or a security person? Why do you pray to Hanuman for this silly thing? For you, for him, gold was nothing. When Ravana's, their Mandodari offered him so many gold and thinking he's just a monkey, he said, they have no value. It's only for Rama I'm doing all these things. I have no other agenda in life. And do you think your foolish Hanuman Chalisa will bring this Hanuman to guard your silly house? Which is, he did not care for the whole universe. And why will he protect your money? Why will he protect your house? You just put a nice lock, he said. Put a nice lock, put some security cameras. That is enough. Don't disturb Hanuman for this. It's your wrong idea. So that is what Thakur is now pointing out, that God's role is not that. To earn money, to do all the, protect the things and all. Yes, He may help us in different ways when we are in trouble, when we are in deep trouble. We can ask Him for His help. But that is not His main job. He said, that is His duty as a father does. You don't praise your father or mother. Oh, every day you don't praise your father and mother. Oh, you are so kind. Every day you are cooking meals for me. We take it for granted. Thakur is saying, not that we should not be grateful, but he says what is so great about it. Every father and mother will look after, every father and mother will look after the children. So there is nothing new. So pray in a higher way. Think of a higher prayer. Don't just say thank you. You never tell your father and mother every day at night, oh, thank you for the wonderful meal you have cooked. It is as ridiculous as that. So Thakur says, if you have a son, will people from Vamanpada look after him? You have to look. The father has to look. You create your children. You have given them birth. And if you say, there is great bravery, I am looking after my son. What is so great about it? What is so heroic? You have given birth, it is your duty to look. कि वामनपाड़ा থেকে লোক এসে তোমাদের ছেলে মেয়ের দেখা করবে, means will they come from Vamanpada, means any other neighborhood? What is so great? The parents have to look. They cannot boast that we are looking after our children. You don't expect the neighbors to look after your children. It is as ridiculous as that. So God has created us. So it is his duty to protect us. We don't have to thank God or praise God or request God to do it. You don't request your parents to do. You should be as free as you are with the parents. That's the idea. Yeah, this is the picture of Jesus, the painting which I referred to, where Jesus is meditating and the bird is almost about to sit on his shoulder or the head because he is in that deep meditative state. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.